My name's Paul Stevens. I'm a retired police detective sergeant from Camden, Islington Metropolitan Police, and I've been protesting here today outside the Old Bailey about the right of juries to reach their verdict using their conscience or their convictions. I mean, for me, the justice is twofold. Number one, the big polluters in the world who are breaching the planetary boundaries and pushing climate breakdown are not being prosecuted, and at the same time the climate protesters who are trying to raise awareness and change things more quickly, get the government to do their job and protect the public, they're getting prosecuted in a way that is not fair. And I've been in Crown Courts for the last 30 years, and so I know a lot about Crown Courts and a lot about juries, and they usually get to hear what somebody's done and why they've done it. And with climate protesters, they've been denied that. They've just been able to say what they did and not why they did it, and that's not just.
Earlier this year, Trudi Warner was arrested for holding a sign that said juries have an absolute right to acquit a defendant on the basis of their conscience. She did this outside a court where a climate trial was going on. Today, we're at the Old Bailey, where protesters are holding the same sign as she was, to talk to them about the role of juries in our democracy and why they're risking arrest.
I'm here today because I read about Trudi. People not allowed to tell their story in court. They were silenced, and that just really angered me. Alarm bells rang. Anybody being silenced in a court is serious, and I think it's our right as citizens to be able to speak your truth in court. So if another human being cannot speak their truth to the jury, who are other ordinary citizens, and that's being prevented, I think it's a really serious breach of our human rights in the UK.
There was one protest that we did which was a fire engine, and we sprayed fake blood over the Treasury because they were investing in oil and gas kind of secretly, this fake blood over the Treasury, and they got acquitted or bound over, so it's not conviction after a full trial. And at the end the judge said, sometimes doing jury service brings you head on with the important issues of the day. Random citizens are perfectly equipped to judge. The rule of law is important, so is the climate crisis and every other existential threat that we face or have faced. So he got it. The last two trials I've been in, the judges have allowed the defendants to say why they did it and what motivated them within the climate breakdown, gave a lot of scientific evidence, and then at the end the judge would say, well, the jury shouldn't pay attention to this, can pay attention to this, shouldn't pay attention to this. So he made his ruling after the oral evidence. So that was fair, and they got found not guilty because the jury were exposed to the context.
I mean, isn't that a case really where you're relying on individual judges to make judgments about probably their own personal beliefs? I mean, that does sound like a broken system to me. I don't know.
No, they were following the law as it should be, whereas other judges have not followed the law as it should be, in my opinion. I'm not a judge, obviously, but and they've basically said you cannot continue a protest into the courtroom, so you can't talk about why you were protesting, you can't talk about a broken government, broken democracy, broken legal system. So there's all these things they weren't allowed to talk about, and that's not justice, And
how do you see the role of the jury in a courtroom?
The role of the jury it's they're ordinary citizens, so it's a good question. I didn't give that much thought.
Don't worry.
I mean, it's an assumption. I think since you're a child from movies, you just it's fundamental as a fabric of a democratic society to have an external voice that isn't being paid by the state. Absolutely. And that's my way of. It almost feels like a natural right. Yeah.
We push for citizens' assemblies, where you have randomly selected people but representative of the public. So you've got disabled people, all races and colours, and everybody's there, and it's proportionate. And then you give them the same information on both sides of an issue, whether it be climate or something more, that's also important, and you get them to decide over a series of weekends. That's the way we have to go forward, because Normal people can make really good decisions when you give them the responsibility and you give them the right information, proper sourced information. When they have to have a referendum, which is obviously being pushed for climate by right-wing groups like the Reform Party, when you have a referendum, they get informed by the right-wing press, and that is not good information. So, a lot of it's propaganda. So there's a big case for seeing citizens' assemblies being introduced into our democratic system.
Literally, I was just looking at my phone and it just came up, the Trudi Warner case. I just read an article in the paper and I suppose I identified with her as well, similar sort of age and her bravery, and then just this just quite shocked that this had actually, it was sheer shock that this had actually happened.
Other people who've done this protest have held signs outside courts, and they've been sent letters by the Met Police saying, you need to come in and speak to us. I mean, what made you sort of willing to kind of risk that?
I didn't give it much thought. I mean, I saw a request come today, and I just acted on it. I didn't actually give it much thought, and I'd be willing to accept that as well if it happened.
And for yourself, coming out here today, in theory at least, you're risking arrest, and I understand you've been given a letter before by the police to come in for questioning.
I've been in for questioning. Yeah.
I mean, could you tell me a little bit about that experience and also why you're motivated to keep risking that?
Because it raises the profile. I mean, if judges are free to ignore people's motivation and not allow that to go before the jury, then that is, in my opinion, that's a miscarriage of justice. So the higher the profile, then the less likely that is to happen. And because the jury is the humanity in the legal system, it's really important, and a lot of legal people understand that the jury should be sacrosanct. They are our conscience. They are the society's conscience, and they should be protected.